kiss and hug me. Come on, strong, go on and love me. Let's not waste that big old moon. Wake up and smell the perfume. Just say, if you want to be more than friends, got some love I'd like to make. Maybe you can squeeze me out.
And welcome to episode number 1.6 of Marketing Momentum with Charles and Deborah. Hi, Charles.
Hello, Deborah. How are you?
So, Charles, I've been dying all week to hear more because I know you've referenced it, so I'm at the advantage to know a little bit, but only teensy bit. I want to hear about your program, Taking Your Talents to Main Street.
Yeah, man, I'm really excited about that. It is, you could say it's a little bit of a life's work. It's kind of come to fruition, with my daughter graduating, but it kind of has everything to do with what I did for 12 years, working at a boarding school with at-risk youth, primarily with teenage boys for 12 years. And that's a long story, but basically, I think we understand. Here's the basic concept of taking your talents to Main Street. I think all of us in our country, we're trying to figure out exactly, there are all these gaps, right? There are lots of people who would like to work but can't find suitable work. There are these small businesses that need help to not only do their marketing, but also they just need help just to kind of keep things afloat. There are the consultant class, and I think this is really important. They're able to tell a business what to do, but there's this gap between telling them what to do and actually getting the execution done, because as a consultant, you actually can't be there at their location to do all their social media. You can advise them. You can set up automation. There are all these gaps with, I think, what we call Main Street or small business. And really and truly, one of the goals of the book is for people to understand the role that they can play in really burgeoning this part of the economy and really taking their talent. Not that corporate America is bad, not that working for a big company is bad, not that working, for your traditional company with all the salaries and benefits, that's a bad thing. I just think by waiting for all those things and waiting for the programs to bring these things back the way that they were, they're not coming. The cavalry's not coming. And so small business needs the help. They may not know what kind of help they need, but they need the help. There are people that need to be able to go there and be able to execute. And there are folks who can kind of show them what to do. All those things can be brought together by folks taking their talent, not necessarily to Wall Street, but to Main Street. And that's college students, that's middle managers who just kind of got sent out to pasture. And that's, everyday folks who are trying to figure out, okay, what can I do rather than, what can I do with my gifts and my talents? And often we think, well, we got to take them, to get in front of bright lights in the big city. I mean, there are small businesses that can use that talent. So that's really the genesis of the whole idea.
So now, is this a book that people would buy and find out, or is this a program or a member site? What is?
It's both, actually. The book is really, and the book will be out on August 9th. I'm going to unveil it in Philadelphia. Going to be going to JV Live up there with Ken MacArthur, and it's actually a grouping of some talks that I've given on all of these subjects. So basically, what I've done is I put together the concept, but I've also talked about the marketing principles that can be executed with small business. What is that? Sorry about that. That was Skype live action.
No, it's okay. I'm like, what is that?
But actually what I've done is a series of talks where I've talked about the principles that can be executed with small business as well as the overall picture, because basically I'm focusing in this book on marketing, because if, let's say that I'm a small business and you're a small business. I can't necessarily afford to pay 3 people, and nor do I want a free intern. I'd be more than happy to have someone who could help me market my show, and with that growth, I'd be willing to pay them. It's an untraditional model. It's something that, again, you have to kind of be open to in order to do, but it can be done if you're willing to do something in a small business as opposed to Wall Street. So it's a collection of talks that I've given on each of these subjects. And the marketing principles, there are about 50. The overall book, there are about 8. So there are a lot of little chapters, a lot of little talks, and it's captured into a book. And there will be a member site, but the book is kind of the primary thing.
So it's part inspirational and drawing why this is important, why someone would want to read this and it would help them from where they're at. But then it's also the actual nuts and bolts of how to. These are the steps.
It is. I'm thinking about myself, right? I'm a solopreneur. I've got the help of my family. I've got the help of my daughters. And, at some point, I've got this, I've got a 17-year-old that has finished school. Why give her nothing to do, or why send her out to go do a job when, she could very well just help me to do social media. Do you know, and you and I know this, and probably some of the folks who are listening to this know this, how much it takes to do social media, right? How much does it take to be on Twitter? How much it takes to be on Facebook? Well, you could stay up all night, every night with that stuff, and still be necessary and still be undone.
Mm-hmm.
Every small business needs help, right? Solopreneurs need help. Small businesses need help. This stuff doesn't go away, and so what ends up happening is it ends up either going undone, or you say, you know what? It's just overwhelming. It's something I can't do. Whether or not my competition does it or not, I'll just keep limping along. But there's help to be had if folks are willing to do something that's out of the ordinary. If they understand, and that's what I'm trying to do with the book, is to understand what 2 hours means to me. What would 2 hours a day mean to me? Whether or not I could pay you up front or not, what would 2 hours a day, if you could do 2 hours at this desk every day, what would that mean to you?
For me,
Like,
it would be the difference between burnout and no burnout if I had somebody doing 2 hours about that amount of work. Not saying
Video
burning out, but I'm
editing.
saying it could be that the straw that breaks the camel's back, the
Exactly.
difference.
Video editing. How long does it take to write descriptions for videos? How long does it take to write blog posts? How long does it take to, and all this stuff is not, unfortunately, it's not unnecessary. And sometimes there's a difference between making it and not making it, right? But sometimes we either let it go undone, or we just try to do it all ourselves. Doesn't get done right, doesn't get done at a level of quality that really is going to bring us any profit. So there are people that can do the work if they're willing. There are people who want the work done if they're willing. We've got to just then figure out the logistics of how do we bring these two groups together? How do we make sure that, there's some equity given? And then how do we do it so that the person doing the work knows that it matters? So, yeah, I can have somebody do 2 hours at my desk doing social media, but they got to know how it matters. They got how it fits. And part of this is, I guess, a little on the selfish end, because I've as a homeschooler, as somebody who's probably a little less enamored with I'd say formal education, I'm going to say that a person could learn a whole lot at the business level with a small business person if they're doing something that matters. I'm perfectly fine by saying, yeah, an internship means nothing if all they're doing is shuffling papers, or if they're doing all the grunt work that I don't want them to do. But if their contribution is real, and their contribution really leads to the growth of a business, then it makes all the difference in the world. And I think that's really where all of us have to come up to. If we're going to have people, going to bring in whatever you call it, intern, independent contractor, whatever you want to call them, those of us who invite these people in, we've got to be willing to give them opportunity that's really going to help us to grow a business so that their effort does matter, and so that, again, it leads to the kind of thing that we can compensate them fairly for their work. It's just not going to happen up front. It's not necessarily going to even happen as it goes. It's going to happen as a result of performance and growth.
It's interesting, as you're talking intern, and I was thinking, I'm not a history major, so don't mark anything down that I say on some test that you're taking or whatever. But, the whole concept of apprentice, didn't that seem like something that they did back in the early years of our country? And it's like a lost art. But, I was thinking the difference in my mind, and I may be wrong, the difference between apprentice and intern. Intern, I do think of that. Really good intern program is almost like an apprentice, but intern is like, okay, I don't feel like filing these papers. You can go do that, and then I'll give you credit for college. I'm not saying everyone does that, but intern always seems like, oh, they're just doing all the stuff that the business owner doesn't want to do. But apprentice, I think of it like the cobbler teaching the apprentice how to fix shoes, or whatever, so that when they retire or they pass from this earth, that apprentice can then either take over the business or start their own business, and the customers go to the apprentice. It seems like a continuation on the whole life cycle, and people learn the art. And that seems to be lost in my mind in the definition of intern. Am I way off on that?
I think you're right. And I think, it's almost as if we can and we should bring that concept into the digital age. And I guess what I'm bringing this to is this whole area of marketing, but it can be applied any place, which is you're really coming here, yes, to learn, but you're not coming here to learn, so that you can take it, as you said, aptly, back to the classroom so that you get credit. You're learning this so that you can do it, number one, for yourself, and because it matters to the business, right? Your work matters to the business. Your work matters to you. And an apprentice, again, it's not something that we talk about a lot, in our culture, because again, and I guess we could probably talk about this endless amount of time. We revere the college model, and this could be 10,000. So there are discussions about this endless number of times, but we sort of revere this model of you get done with a 4-year college, 2-year college, whatever the case is, and now you're ready to take on the work world. And truth be told, all of us, and I just read this in the book Mastery by Robert Greene. He said, when you get out of college or you finish any stage of formal education, your next stage is an apprenticeship. Yes, you may be getting paid, but when you first start, I first started at the bank. What did I know about banking? Nothing, right? So it didn't matter what I had brought from school, right? Because I had to learn their way. I had to learn how to read financial statements their way. I had to learn how to apply it to small business their way. It was an apprenticeship, and so an apprentice doesn't get paid like a first vice president. Apprentice gets paid like an apprentice and has to learn how to do stuff. And so I think, again, we don't necessarily have to always have, right? And this is another discussion for another day. And trust me, please don't think I'm saying that, if you're listening to this, that I think you and your kids don't need to go to college. This is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the route to get to where you want to go doesn't necessarily have to be a 4-year college or 2-year college. It really has to be that you understand the grammar of what it is that you want to focus on. Now, does that mean that a college degree cannot help you? It certainly is. Certainly it does. If you want to be an engineer, I certainly hope that you went to college and you studied engineering. If you want to be a doctor,
please, I'm not driving on your bridge if you
Exactly. But at the same time, though, there's certain things that really require a person, and we talked about this. I know a kid, right? I know a kid that at 18 or 19 This kid said, I want to be a CPA. Studied the laws in his state, figured out that and this was a little while ago, and they might have even changed the law since then, but he figured out that what he needed to do was to get the hours in accounting, and that he needed to pass the CPA exam, but that he could skip the hours of accounting in a textbook, take the CPA exam, and get the hours at a CPA firm. So what does that mean? That at 22, right, he'd already passed the CPA exam. He's already a master accountant and had been working as a CPA for 3 years, right? So, and maybe he was exceptional, right? Maybe he was a superstar when it comes to accounting. I don't think he was, right? Just from having talked to the kid, I don't think he was. What happened was he figured out, and someone gave him the opportunity to work in the field. And yeah, he didn't make any money for a little while, but you better believe that once he became a CPA and he'd had his experience, they were not going to let that kid go, and they were willing to compensate him not to let him go, because they didn't want this kid to walk out. They'd invested too much time in him. And again, the model is different, because if he demanded that he get paid as soon as he got out of high school, he demanded his way, well, he probably would have never gotten the opportunity. And I think that that's what we're talking about here, which is changing the model a little bit, giving people the opportunity to really do something in a small business that matters. And right now, small businesses need help with the logistics of marketing. And I say this as the consultant, and maybe I'm letting the cat out of the bag, but not everybody can afford a consultant. Not everybody can afford to. They can't. And because consultants got a learning curve too with your business, and need a consultant for all intents and purposes, right? I need somebody to come and do, a lot of this stuff to get the word out about the radio show. And if I had that, well, that'd be fantastic. I know how to execute, right? And that's the problem with being a solopreneur. You got all these things and you're extremely good at. You're a master at Hangout. Well, the problem isn't being a master at Hangouts, right? The problem isn't that you don't know what you're doing, or that you don't know how to talk to people or write memos or even communicate with them. Problem is you've got X number of hours and you only got 1 or 2 hours to market your business. And if you were to pay a consultant, you wipe out your profit before you even get started. And so there is this, and it's just a gap. So I'm not trying to eliminate or disrupt the consultant class. I'm saying, though, that there is room for somebody, if they want to be an apprentice and they want to come and learn how to make a business grow, there is space for them at pick a business. Pick one. Because the how-to isn't that hard. Isn't that hard to work with the business owner to discover unique selling proposition, to determine what they should be selling, to determine what is going to be profitable, to come up with an editorial or a marketing calendar. It just takes time. And most of us are trying to do all this stuff ourselves, just like the business owner. And so there's room for people if they're willing to be an apprentice. You put it right. There's room for that model. There's room for you if you wanted to be. Now, if you have to get paid, right, you got to be paid right now. Taking talents on Main Street might sound good, but it's not going to fit the overall perspective. But if you're willing to dive into a business, the fact of the matter is, if somebody came in and grew my business, at the end of it, I'm not letting them go. Right?
I'm paying them. I'm like, thank you very much.
Exactly. I'm not letting them go. So yes, it's a risk that there are going to be some people they're going to be a jerk and they're going to say, well, you agreed not to work for any money. Well, then walk. But you walk out with not just experience, not something that you can tick off on your resume. This is something real that you did that you can go replicate someplace else. Because the whole certification culture, I think, is over, right? Where that piece of paper means that you can do this, It may still mean that in various places, but you and I know from having left, we're both cubicle refugees. We know how much that really means. If somebody brings me a piece of paper with their resume, at this point, I've already played that game. So I know that what they put on that resume was meant to hide stuff. It wasn't meant to tell me anything. Right.
There are some people with certificates.
It's just meant to obscure. but it's real, and you. If somebody brings me a resume at this point, and again, I've been through that. I've got a graduate degree, been through all that, submitted 1,000 resumes, taught at the graduate level. It's meaningless to me right now. Right? If I had to hire somebody right now, that resume, just between us girls here, is not going to mean a single thing to me. I want to be able to see what you can do. Let me see what you did. You know, whatever you call it, a portfolio. You want to be here for a day. You want to do this. Let me see what you can do. That's all I need to see. I don't need to see a resume, right? I don't need to see that stuff. I need to be able to see what you could do inside of this business if I give you a limited amount of information and a Skype number, right? You know, that's what. And again, we may not be ready to say that in our culture yet, but that's the real deal. And this whole apprenticeship mindset, if somebody's willing to go in and dive in and really get something that's, I don't like transferable because it sounds like you're trying to use it as leverage to go get hired someplace else. I'm talking about something that you learn how to do that you can then walk into any business and say, you know what? I can grow your business. I know exactly how. I know how to do these 7 things. I've done it. And you look at that business down the street, and they weren't necessarily willing to pay me, but this is where that business was. This is where they are. And look, give me 2 weeks, and I can grow your business. And when you know you can do that, that to me that's capital. That's career capital. That's something that is different to me than, time that you marked. Because, at this point, even if you got fired, your employer can't say that anyway. So just because you mark time someplace doesn't mean anything, right? But when you can walk in and say, and know it, right? Like you can because you've learned all these principles, and they're not hard to learn, right? Mm-hmm. Marketing isn't hard. It takes testing, and it takes persistence, and it takes applying the principles like constantly. When you can do that in a business, I can't see where you're, whatever the word is, unemployable, or you can't make something happen for yourself. And that's really what I want to be able to do with the book, is to give people the opportunity who want it, right? Some people are going to be turned off. They're going to be thinking, I'm saying, Charles Harper wants me to be an unpaid intern just like the rest of that's not it at all. For the people who want to do it, I want to give them the opportunity to make something happen, to be able to walk away from a business with capital, right? With real capital that they know they have, and to be able to go any place and make something happen in business, or even start their own. Because the hard part about a business is not the idea, right? It's not of it. It's getting the right message to the people consistently. And when you know how to do that, to me, and I could be wrong about that, but to me, man, you've got it. You can, if you know how to do that, I'd be willing to give you what you asked for.
Well, and if you're, not that this is only for young people, but I mean, if you think about it, if rather than saying, hey, I'm 18, I've just graduated, now what am I going to do? I can't afford college, blah, 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 and all the list of complaints, let's look at the positive. If you have a place to live, your parents are letting you stay there, you got affordable roommate, whatever, this may be your opportunity with a lower cost of living to go apply yourself, even if you're not making a lot of money, because like you said, it's that career capital. Maybe you're a spouse, and your spouse is making enough money to cover the household costs and so forth. If you are in a position where you do not require, a gajillion dollars a day, this might be your opportunity to, like you said, you're investing in career capital.
Yeah, and if you look, if somebody's willing to pay you as a consultant before you actually prove what you can do, hey, go for it, right? If you can get it, if you can get it. But I'm saying you don't have to do that, right? It doesn't have to be that hard. It's really as simple as doing it one time, making it happen in a business, and saying, I did this. I can do this. I can do the same thing I did here for you now. I don't think you don't really have to know how to sell then, right? You don't have to be like the big guy, like the guy with the plaid jacket and the bow tie. You just have to be able to say, I know what I'm doing, and give me a week or two to prove it. I'll show you, and then that'll be it. That's a lot easier to me than sending out 10,000 resumes, dealing with the whole self-esteem issue, dealing with, is the economy ever going to come back, waiting around to see if somebody's going to make it happen. It's not, and this, again, I say this, and I know this from the outset, this is going to be an absolute turnoff for some folks, and that's okay with me. I want to reach people who are saying, you know what, there's something I know I can do, and I'm willing to step outside of the traditional bounds in order to try to do it. That's who this is for.
Mm-hmm. And, speaking as a business owner, I've hired, for example, virtual assistants, and I've done what I thought was laying out exactly, okay, I need you to do this, like a checklist. But see, I'm very checklist oriented.
Right.
I'm an A personality. Right. I don't expect perfection, but I do expect that if this is a task list and I'm paying you, that this gets done. And, I got to a point where, and I'm not picking anyone out there, but it was like, you know what, I think I'm just not going to go through the hiring process because it gets so tiresome. But if somebody came to me and said, you know what, I think I can work with your A personality. I think I can do this. Where's the checklist? Let me show you what I can do. Goodness, if that person is doing it and we've got more income coming in, I'm very generous. I have no problem sharing with that apprentice. So when you're talking about this concept, yeah, absolutely. As a business owner, if someone can come in and get the job done, the least amount of hassle, and your business is growing as a result, yeah, payment is kind of a non-issue. It's a done deal.
Right, and there are things that in the brief amount of time, my daughter will sit over my shoulder in a webinar, and I'm typing something, and she'll say, you know what, Dad, don't put that there. That's huge, right? It's a small thing, and I think everybody can have that. There are a lot of things that somebody can bring to me that just say, you know what, that's not quite right. When you can kind of think through what I'm not doing, again, that is the kind of thing that, it's almost difficult to hire somebody to get that, because most of us, and I've been there too. I mean, I've had some jobs where, hey, look, I'm going to do what you tell me to do. I'm not going to do too much of what you didn't tell me to do, not because I'm lazy, just because I don't want to get my head shut off. Right, but it's different though. You're right. I think it's different though. It's a different mentality when you're not necessarily trying to get me to, you're not trying to one up me. You're not trying to. I mean, you're just kind of there because you're learning this thing and you see things, and I don't have to tell you every little thing, right? So what happens when the missing from the checklist, and let's say, because all of us have you've got yours written, which is what most people should do, but all of us have these checklists of things that we do to make our thing happen, but we're blind to the things that should be there, right? And sometimes all it takes is somebody to say, hey, why don't you have this here? That's what you want, and this is what, again, somebody who's got that life experience from someplace else, somebody who can bring themselves to it, they're going to take ownership of it. That is the kind of thing that, again, a whole apprenticeship can bring to the table that I think is it is wide open right now. It's wide open, right? Now, secretly, I hope one of the things I get out of this, now I've got my daughters to help me this, but I hope that somebody will read the book and they'll call you. I hope somebody will read this book and they'll say, hey, you know what? I know this couple down the street. They do this social media thing. Maybe I'll just go ahead and see if I can offer them some assistance. I hope that happens because, again, we're still talking about ones and zeros in our neck of the woods, right? The internet marketing sort of thing. We're still talking about ones and zeros, but every time that our business increases, it does grow the economy. It does grow things. It grows things exponentially in a way that can't be grown otherwise. When somebody else comes in and they're willing to create more income, that creates more in and of itself. And so, yeah, I mean, the economy is contracting. Yes, there's only so much that there's only so much that you can do with scarce resources. Not all resources are scarce, and not everything comes back down to this labor pool that has to be paid right now if they're willing to step outside of the bounds. And somebody like me is willing to take a chance with somebody, right? That's part of the thing too. I've got to be willing to say, you sort of bring in this proposal to me, and I'm going to trust you in front of my customers, right? I'm going to trust you with this. I've got to be willing to say that too, but there's a win in there someplace. What you have to know as the apprentice is basically, what does it take to market a business? What does it take? What do you have to do on a daily basis? Because, truth be told, and you can speak to this, we are all the cobblers that don't have shoes. We don't market our business because we don't have time. We don't. We don't have time to try to get on television to do PR. We don't have time to get in the newspaper to do PPC because we need to do all this stuff, right? You need to be doing all of it. It's all relevant. And so what we say to ourselves is, I'm just going to get good at marketing. I'm going to just get at one thing to market my business. That's not the way business works. And, a business that's making it happen, they've got a full court press in every venue, and that's possible, or it's more possible when you've got more help. It's just that if the only model is I've got to pay, and I'm not picking on HubSpot, right? The only way I can do this is I've got to pay HubSpot $3,000, and I've got to pay a consultant another $2,000. That's the only way it can happen. Well, it might not happen, right? But if somebody can come in and kind of, not from the top down, but to learn this from where they're getting out of this a solid, what I think is a solid practical marketing education that they can take elsewhere and do elsewhere, that's going to help me. It's going to help them. And it's ultimately going to help the customers that are going to be able to get to me that, would never have otherwise done so had they not been with me. And really, that's what taking your talents to Main Street is. Take them to the place where people need your talent. All of us are waiting for this. We need the help, right? But again, it's untraditional, it's unstructured, it's different. So I'm trying to throw this as an idea and try to give them the confidence that there's some things that you can do tomorrow at a business, and then we'll see where the rest of it takes me.
Excellent. There you have it, guys. It's coming out on August 9th, so just a few days from now. Excellent. And I will, when it launches, I will update the show notes so that there's a link there so people can find it. Wow, I'm so jazzed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And there's going to be there'll be an audio. Most of it you'll be able to get all of it on audio. So if you're not really like a reader person, you'll be able to download the audios to your iPod, and really the audios will be better because the book is kind of comes from the audio. So. Oh,
gotcha. Okay, excellent. I'm looking forward to it. Well, thank you, and thank you.
Okay. Yep. Thank you,
viewers and listeners, for joining us for another Marketing Momentum with Charles and Deborah, episode 16.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. See you next week.
All right.
Don't you wanna kiss and hug me? Come on strong, go on and love me. Let's not waste that big old moon. Wake up and smell the perfume. Just say if you wanna be more than friends. Got some love I'd like to make. Baby, you can squeeze me, I won't break. We could be in a paradise, you and me. Until then, I'll remind you again. Just say when. Oh yeah, until then, I'll remind you again. Just say when. Oh baby, just say when.